Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Yankees sweep the Philadelphia Phillies in Philly, and the Yankees are now on a 5-game winning streak. So things have turned around pretty quickly for the Yankees, and they are now 20 games above 500, sitting at 65-45, and only a half game behind the Baltimore Orioles, who are 65-44. So one back on the loss side, and the Yankee schedule really does get a little bit easier, at least on paper. And the funny thing is, the Yankees have been way better on the road than they have been at home. They're 38-22 on the road compared to 27-23 at home. So, very big difference. And no one's really talking about that. Again, could it just be a fluky coincidence? Maybe. But the Yankees will now have a 9-game homestand against the Blue Jays, Angels, and Texas Rangers. So, not the most difficult stretch. And then after that, they face the White Sox, who are really one of the worst teams we've seen in recent years. But it's just funny how things can kind of just turn almost by happenstance. Is the Yankees are coming off a really gut loss, a gut check, just really awful loss to the Red Sox in Game 1. And Game 2, it looks like they're about to lose again, lose another series, but they're down to the last strike. Trent Grisham hits somewhat of an innocent fly ball to the opposite field, and Tyler O'Neill kind of misplays it, goes off the green monster. Yankees tie the game, win it in extra innings, which they don't normally do. Then they win Sunday Night Baseball, and they carry that into the Phillies series. And then you get the acquisition of Jazz Chisholm, which has just brought so much energy to this team. Yankees really are one of the most streaky teams you'll find in recent years. Just like when they're going well, they go really well, and then vice versa. When it's bad, it's really bad. But the two main players that sort of led the charge in this series. Now, you could always go to Aaron Judge. Like, he hit 2 home runs in Game 1. You could always go there, right? You almost take him for granted. And now he sits at 39 homers and 99 RBIs. And we're not even, we're going to be in August when the Yankees resume play, but it's just insane. But Jazz Chisholm hits 2 home runs in Game 1 and 2 home runs in Game 2, including 5 RBIs in Game 2. So he's the first Yankee ever to hit 4 home runs in his first 3 games with the club. And then DJ LeMahieu, out of nowhere, 6 RBI performance in a 6-5 win. He got all 6 RBIs, a grand slam, and a 2-run double for LeMahieu, who his role has diminished, deservedly so. He has just not gotten it done at all. Even with that performance, he's still hitting, I think, around 180 or so. I'll get that exact number when we get to Game 3, but yeah, this was impressive. And look, the Phillies have been struggling lately. You can't discount that. They might have caught him at the right time. Bryce Harper is really going through it right now, a really prolonged cold streak for him. But, they got what they needed. And again, this is in the midst of the trade deadline. So, I've had conversations on this channel, as recently as yesterday, just discussing the state of the team. But, with that in mind, please like and subscribe. Subscriptions, it's free, it's easy to do, and it really helps the channel. So it'd be greatly appreciated. But yeah, in discussing the club, definitely some reasons for encouragement. Another blown save for Clay Holmes in the series that has me concerned. Gleyber Torres, and the defense that he's providing, although he did make a game-saving play in Game 2, but just not good defense for Gleyber Torres. There are some things that definitely do worry me. Giancarlo Stanton returns, and Game 1 didn't really do a whole lot, but also didn't look that bad either. Because with Stanton, the concern for me is when he comes back from these injuries, it takes him a while to get going. So far, so good. Looked pretty good. Had a couple of hits in Game 3. So him being back in the middle of that order is a really, really big thing for this team. And the way they have it right now, it's Stanton batting 4th, Chisholm batting 5th. No, that's actually not true. That's actually not true. Versus righties, it was Wells batting cleanup. Although Austin Wells did have a rough series. So I wonder if they moved Chisholm up and Wells down. I am curious to see that heading into the Blue Jays series, because that kind of would make some sense. And what they've done is they've had Verdugo batting leadoff versus righties and Gleyber batting leadoff versus lefties. I'm all right with that, but I do think that Chisholm ultimately, him being leadoff to me makes a lot of sense ultimately. But at the same time, his power, is not such a bad thing right in the middle of that order. So a lot of more pieces to move around. Volpe is now more kind of supplanted into that bottom of the lineup, which I think is a lot better. I think Volpe in the 8 or 9 spot is much preferred as opposed to anywhere else. You look at the lineup versus lefties, it's still not as strong because I think in that there was Volpe batted 6th in that lineup. So again, I still think that the Yankees are definitely better versus righties, and I think teams should still, especially with the Chisholm acquisition, that's another lefty into the mix. So that was a little bit of a surprise. It's good to get Stanton back. It's interesting with Dominguez. He's a switch hitter. I don't know if they're necessarily in a rush to bring him up. I think push comes to shove, we will see him. Like whether it be injury or ineffectiveness by someone, I think we will see Jason Dominguez get his opportunity, but it doesn't seem like they're going to rush to get him up here because you do have a bit of a logjam as it is. Your bench at this point is the backup catcher, whether that be right now Carlos Narvaez or like Jose Trevino when he comes back. And then it's Oswaldo Cabrera, who I feel bad for him. He really, I think, got screwed almost more than anyone. Like, his playing time is going to be really tough. Trent Grisham is going to be on the bench for the most part. And then also DJ LeMahieu. So it kind of makes it tough where they're going to be hard-pressed to call up Dominguez. But I guess it's a good problem to have, but I still think that there are changes that can still be made. But they've found a little bit of a niche. I think that this lineup is a lot deeper now than it was with the Chisholm acquisition, with Stanton coming back, with some players starting to heat up again. And you're not so dependent solely on Judge and Soto, even though, again, like game 1, they were fantastic, and game 2 as well. At least in the case of Judge in game 2. So, as far as the starting pitching goes, and because of everything that's gone on, a big talking point, which needs to be discussed, is the fact that Garrett Cole did not start game 2. He was lined up to, but he didn't because of what was termed as general body soreness. So Will Warren made his major league debut and actually acquitted himself quite all right. He was sent down after the game. That wasn't unexpected, but he made one mistake to Austin Hayes, who looked pretty good for the Phillies. He was an acquisition from the Baltimore Orioles. Kind of glad he's out of the division, to be honest. But Will Warren gets the job done, but with Cole, it's a little bit concerning. And I think for now, the hope is that he will pitch Sunday versus the Blue Jays. They have it listed as TBD. And I think the hope is they don't want to, fully commit to that. And I think that I don't think it's going to be an IL stint, but it's cause for concern. Knowing that Cole missed, basically half the season, knowing that he also has been a bit ineffective at times as well, hasn't quite fully looked himself. So, hopefully it's just there, Cole is just being careful, but it's something to monitor, and it's a huge development if it does go the wrong way. Hopefully it was just kind of a one-star thing, and he'll be ready to go for the Blue Jays series and looking good as well. So we shall see with that. But as far as the starters were concerned, all of them kind of did all right. And it's funny, I think in each of the cases, and I'll confirm this when we go through each game, I think they all went 5 1/3, each of them. Heel, Warren, and Cortez. And in the case, Heel got a lot of run support. And look, Heel out of all of them was probably the best. He probably was the most dominant. But Nestor, look, it was Nestor's first win on the road since May of 2023. So, that was big for Cortez, who was far from perfect, but, it was good. And he was involved in a lot of trade rumors. That was a pretty big start for him. So, I would say that he did come through. It wasn't without its warts, but he did come through when he had to. To discuss the roster before we get into this series, pretty simple, to be honest. Obviously, Stanton returned, and so Jahmai Jones was designated for assignment. You knew that was going to come at some point, and it's become official. He was well-liked in the locker room, or the clubhouse, I should say, but ultimately he's gone. Haven't heard yet what the deal is really with him or J.D. Davis as far as – to me, I would be surprised if Davis remains in the organization. In the case of Jones, I could see him going to AAA, going to Scranton possibly if no one else, has any interest in him. So – but again, I think we've definitely seen the last of J.D. Davis, and we've probably seen the last of Jahmai Jones with the Yankees. I think, again, in talking about Dominguez, and you think about even like John Birdie, like whenever he could come back, it would be surprising. But again, crazier things have happened. So there's that, right? Stanton returns to the lineup into the 26-man roster. And then as far as the pitching was concerned, you had Mark Leiter Jr. come in and essentially take the place of Caleb Ferguson, who was traded to the Astros. So Ferguson gone, and that makes sense in the fact that it wasn't working out here. And so that's not a surprise to me that he was dealt. And then they acquire Aniel De Los Santos from the Padres. He has not been put on the active roster yet, but expect him to be before the Blue Jays series begins. And what happened in the meantime was Yoendris Gomez got sent down. They called up Will Warren for his start. Then after his start was done, they sent him down and called up Ron Marinaccio just for the game. He didn't come in, and they sent him back down. I kind of feel bad for Marinaccio, who, he's not a bad pitcher. He's had his inconsistencies, but I kind of feel bad that he's kind of stuck in Scranton. I think we'll see him again. There's always a lot of pitching injuries, and so don't be surprised if Marinaccio does come up at some point. But De Los Santos will take that spot. So I guess let's just jump into the series. Again, facing the Yankees facing a Phillies team that had lost a lot of series in a row. And again, like with the Yankees, that's where the Yankees, it was a prolonged stretch and it was pretty ugly. But all that said, the Yankees lead the series and they're a game and a half out behind the Guardians for the best record in Major League Baseball, 3 back on the loss side of Cleveland. And it's interesting. Orioles play the Guardians this weekend in Cleveland, a 4-game series. So, Yankee fans will definitely be rooting for the Guardians as the Yankees are really creeping closer to the Baltimore Orioles. And, based on the way the schedule looks, Yankees definitely have a shot to win this division. I still respect this Oriole team. I think they're really good. I don't, and the Yankees have their flaws, but this was a really big stretch here to go on this 5-game winning streak, to go to Boston, take 2 of 3, to sweep the Phillies. That will really, really serve them well. So let me just go through some of the players real quick before we go through sort of the play-by-play of the 3 games and sort of give my initial thoughts of how I felt they did in this series. It's been incorporating that in lately. Alex Verdugo, decent series. Not the stats, the offensive stats probably weren't anything too amazing, but I like what Verdugo's done. And you know what? Defensively, he's finding himself again. Where obviously he had that really bad fuck up against the Orioles that last game before the All-Star break. But I feel like Verdugo's defense has been really solid, and offensively, he looks better up there. He does. I'm sure the numbers aren't going to really stand out much compared to some others, but I think Verdugo's done a solid job. Juan Soto, a really great game 1, got on bases a lot per usual. Soto did not homer in this series, but again, a couple of doubles in game 1, and he's about as consistent as they come. Juan Soto. Aaron Judge, really, the first 2 games was awesome from him. Did have a rough game 3, actually, but I want to say he struck out 4. I'll confirm that. I think he struck out 4 times, actually. So, look, and he struck out 3 times game 1. Strikeouts are still a part of Aaron Judge's game. It just is. But there's so much good surrounding that. So, yeah, Judge, just continues to do his thing. Austin Wells, tough couple games for Austin Wells, although he did have a big 2-run triple in game 1. But besides that, to be fair, Wells has been awesome lately. Not a great couple of games for him. Game 2 was a tough one, 0 for 6, and messed up in a lot of key spots. So the only thing for that is it just makes me wonder, do they move Chisholm up and Wells down? I think that's a possibility. Like I said earlier, Giancarlo Stanton returns to the lineup, and even though he goes 0 for 4 in game 1, actually didn't strike out in any of the at-bats, which was good. And then game 3, a couple of hits after he sat out in game 2, which was a planned rest day. Jazz Chisholm Jr., unbelievable. 4 home runs in the first 2 games of the series. And I should have mentioned this, third base. He makes his debut at third base and looks really good. I'm sure there's going to be growing pains, but that is great. The fact that he was able to hold his own is good news for this team. If he can somehow, play a solid defense at third base, it makes things a lot easier for this team and things will fit more into place. So that was good. Gleyber Torres, not a great series for him offensively or defensively. Now, he does have what ended up being the game-winning sack fly in game 2. So Gleyber, he does still get some big hits. He does still get some big sack flies. So, not to say that hasn't happened, but overall, it's more the defense that I have a problem with. Offensively, he didn't really do much, to be honest with you, but I can live with that. It's the defense that's just such a problem. And so for Gleyber, not a great series. Ben Rice, not bad. Ben Rice started games 1 and 2, and a pretty good series for him as he's starting to kind of get it back going. DJ LeMahieu, who came in, in sort of relief appearances in games 1 and 2, didn't do anything in those games, and it was kind of the same old thing. But as we talked about, broke out in a major way in game 3, which was very surprising but very appreciated. And then Anthony Volpe, not terrible for Volpe. For me, though, it's just the at-bats with runners in scoring position are really bad, like really, really bad. And the stats bear it out. So for Volpe, I want him at the bottom of the order for a while. Like, don't even have the temptation. He should not be batting any higher than 6th, really ideally more 8th and 9th. That's what it's got to be for Volpe. And then just some other guys. Look, we didn't really see much of Oswaldo Cabrera other than a first base appearance, actually, which we'll discuss in game 2. In the 13th inning, the ball never went to him. But again, Oswaldo's role is sadly going to be diminished after he was really playing very well. Trent Grisham actually got a start in game 2, made a really nice catch in extra innings in game 2 to save the game. So again, his role is kind of less. And yeah, Carlos Narvaez, he started game 3, which made sense. Day game after night game. Wells could use a breather for sure. And he did have a hit. So anyway, let's finally get into this. Again, there's a lot going on, with the Yankees. But game 1, a matchup between Luis Gil and Zach Wheeler, and Gil wins the battle. Gil improves to 11-5. He goes 5 1/3, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts, and allows 1 homer. ERA sits at 3.20. A really nice outing for Luis Gil. Wasn't perfect, but this is a tough Phillies lineup and a tough ballpark. So I really thought he pitched well. And really limited the damage. That was the key. Didn't have any big innings against him. Sure, there was one run allowed in the 3rd, 1 run allowed in the 4th, and 1 in the 6th. But that's fine, especially with the Yankees offense just exploding for 14 runs, and they got to Zach Wheeler. Make no mistake about it. Zach Wheeler is one of the best pitchers in the league. He loses. And he had been 10-4 going into this game. 5 innings, 7 hits, 7 runs, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts, and 3 homers allowed. Again, that was legit. From the Yankees to do that is really big against a pitcher like Wheeler. So the Yankees get it going early, and that's the key too. Although game 2 they did come back, but they did actually take the lead in that game. The Yankees, it's a different team. When the Yankees take the lead and they get that confidence going, it's really it's like a snowball effect. They really just keep it moving, and Aaron Judge gets them going in the 1st inning. 38th home run of the season, gives the Yankees a 1-0 lead. And then 2nd inning, they add on more. Jazz Chisholm hits his first homer as a Yankee. And it's funny, he's definitely used to playing in Philly. I mean, he was on the Marlins, and that's a division opponent right there. So whereas Fenway Park was definitely probably foreign territory to him for his first game, he probably felt right at home playing at Citizens Bank Park. So that makes it 2-0 Yankees, that Chisholm homer. And then Ben Rice, he hits his 7th homer of the season, makes it 3-0. So just good stuff. 3 home runs off Wheeler in the first 2 innings, gives the Yankees a 3-0 lead. Bottom of the 3rd, the Phillies would score a run. You get a situation where it's bases loaded, 1 out, and Trey Turner, and he's been kind of a little bit on a cold spell. He gets an RBI ground out to cut it to 3-1. Let's go to the bottom of the 4th. Brandon Marsh homers. It's his 11th homer of the season. And it was on an 0-2 pitch. Not a good pitch by Gil. Got way too much plate, and Marsh makes him pay. And so that makes the score 3-2. So the Phillies are creeping closer. but a big fifth inning. This was the real big response inning for the Yanks. A one-out single for Rice, then Volpe singles, then Verdugo walks. You get bases loaded, one out, and just a great classic Juan Soto at bat. A 2-run double is the result. And let's see, how many pitches was this at bat? 8. 8-pitch at bat against Wheeler makes it 5-2. And then Judge does strike out looking. So not a great at bat by Judge there, but Austin Wells, the one really big offensive moment he had this series, it results in his first triple of the season, and possibly, maybe that could have been his first triple of his career. A 2-run triple for Austin Wells makes it 7-2. That was really big to give Luis Gil some breathing room. And Wheeler was done after 5 innings. Bottom of the 6th, leadoff walk to Trey Turner, which you don't want to do if you're heel. Then a sort of a fortunate one-out single for Alec Boehm, and then an RBI single for Brandon Marsh makes it 7-3. That would be all for Luis Gil. And Michael Tonkin comes on, and Tonkin was really a major positive in this series. And you know, he's been struggling lately, and I think now with some of these new acquisitions, I think he might be a little bit lower in the pecking order, but Tonkin is a pretty, I like what he's done as a Yankee overall. And he comes in and gets a really big double play because the momentum was starting to shift, and Real Muto hits a 6-4-3 double play, keeps the score at 7-3. And then we go to the top of the 7th, and Aaron Judge hits a 2-run homer. After Soto singles with 1 out, Judge homers again, his 39th homer of the year. Just, he is back on a pretty, heavy home run pace. And it'll be interesting to see, can he reach 60? I think he can. It won't be easy, and I think it almost might serve him and the team better if it's not going to be another one of those, home run chases. Because, again, I think that did hurt him in a way a couple of years ago. But, yeah, it'd be just an MVP, amazing season from Aaron Judge. Makes it 9-3. Then at the bottom of the 7th, Tonkin runs into a little bit of trouble. There's a one-out single by Stott. And eventually what happens after a Schwarber walk and a few wild pitches, on a wild pitch, Bryson Stott scores, makes it 9-4. So a little bit of wildness from Tonkin there, but he does finish the inning in the 7th. 8th inning, Gregory Soto, the lefty, comes on, who actually was traded the next day to the Orioles at the deadline. I had forgotten, even though, to be fair, Volpe did homer. I did kind of forget about that. So Anthony Volpe hits a 2-run homer. His 9th homer of the year makes it 11-4 at that point. And then an RBI double by Juan Soto makes it 12-4. And then the bottom of the 8th, Yoendris Gomez comes on. He would actually finish out this game and provide 2 scoreless innings. In the middle of that, though, the Phillies bring on Garrett Stubbs, who's actually the backup catcher, to pitch. And what happens? It's a 2-run homer for Jazz Chisholm. So take it with a little grain of salt, right? He did it 4 home runs, but one of them was against Garrett Stubbs. And so that's the 2nd homer of the game, 15th of the season, makes it 14-4 Yankees, and they win by that score. So a really impressive win by the offense. And honestly, Luis Gil, another positive outing for him. Let's jump to game 2. And this is one that is going to involve probably a lot of discussion, but let's try to go through it. Will Warren, again, makes that first Major League start and really held his own. And he's someone that doesn't really have the best numbers. I think he's been better lately, but his numbers in AAA are not the best. He is considered one of the top Yankee pitching prospects. But he goes 5 1/3, 4 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, and 1 bad mistake to Austin Hayes. So really, you take that out, he really was solid, again, in a tough environment as well. And for the Phils, it was Aaron Nola, and Nola was pretty good, not overly dominant, and ultimately, he was the best. I mean, he gave the best starting performance between Wheeler, himself, and Sanchez, but he went 5 2/3, 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, and allowed a homer to Chisholm. But in this game, Stanton sits and Grisham starts, and you move Judge back to DH. So with Stanton back at DH, that is going to lead to a lot of Judge back in center field. So Yankees do take the early lead. They get the first 3 runners on, and then Austin Wells strikes out. Again, it was a rough game for Wells. Chaz Chisholm does get an RBI ground out to give the Yankees a 1-0 lead. So it could have been a pretty big inning. It's not as big as you would have wanted it to be, first inning of Will Warren's MLB career, he does allow a run. It's an RBI double for Alec Bohm, makes it 1-1. And then at the bottom of the second, it ends up being a 3-run homer for Austin Hayes, which I would assume was probably his first Phillies home run. Makes it 4-1 Phillies. And at that point, you're thinking, all right, not great. Nola on the mound for Philly. Warren for the Yanks. But Warren shut it down from there and gave the Yankees a chance to win. So let's go to the top of the sixth, where Jazz Chisholm, he is the one that gets this going. He homers off of Nola. Third homer in 2 games at that point. 16th homer of the year, makes it 4-2. Then a pretty big spot for Verdugo. They bring in Jose Alvarado. First and third, 2 out, and Verdugo grounds out. And then Will Warren gets an out in the 6th with 1 out. Good job by him. He's out of the game. Jake Cousins comes on. And again, Jake Cousins, that's where it does feel like there's a good amount of depth in this bullpen. I think you're lacking on the top end of it. But I do think that you have a bunch of arms that you can somewhat trust and have. There's a lot of talent. Let's put it this way. There's a lot of talent, and there's certain pitchers that have a specific pitch that they're good with. Jake Cousins' slider, Tommy Kahnle's changeup, Clay Holmes' sinker, Mark Leiter Jr. splitter. There's different looks. Obviously, Tim Hill gives you a sort of a funky delivery from the left side. So it's not to say that you don't have different pitchers that provide something that is unique. So that makes it so. Cousins finished 7th inning. We go to the 7th. Matt Strahm comes on, the lefty, and Strahm has been really, really good for Philly this season. An underrated piece in that bullpen, but he does struggle. Juan Soto walks, Aaron Judge walks. Then Wells strikes out. Again, Austin Wells, a tough one for him. But then Jazz Chisholm in a lefty versus lefty matchup, after everything he's already done, defensively, offensively, he hits a 3-run homer to give the Yankees a 5-4 lead. Just unbelievable for Chisholm Jr. And yeah, he's got a lot of swagger to him. He's very happy to not be in Miami and to be with the Yankees right now, and he's taking full advantage of that opportunity. Gives the Yankees a 5-4 lead. Tommy Kahnle comes on, and keep in mind, DJ LeMahieu replaces Ben Rice at first base in the 7th inning. Kahnle does a nice job in that 7th to keep the score a 1-run Yankee lead. Bottom of the 8th, Luke Weaver with a pretty quick 1-2-3 inning. So let's go to the bottom of the 9th. Clay Holmes comes on. And this was one of those outings that Clay Holmes was not hit hard, but the lack of strikeout ability puts him in a tough spot. It's funny, the save he had in the 3rd game, he was hit a lot. He was hit more hard in that game than he was, and he got the save than in the blown save in game 2. But I still want to get to a point where the Yankees are open to the idea of having it being more of a committee approach. Look, Clay Holmes, there's no doubt he's better versus righties. There's no question about that. And they know that too. So I just hope that they're open to the idea come playoff time. I just think Clay Holmes is going to hurt you, whether it's his fault or not. The results are what the results are, and there's a lot of blown saves when it comes to Clay Holmes. And Yankee fan, especially in a 1-run game, feels good about Clay Holmes in the 9th inning. And look, I like the guy. I just think that he's been put into a situation that is above what it should be. And I just think his style of pitching is not conducive to closing these games out in the 9th inning. Anyway, let's go to the 9th inning. Clay Holmes allows a soft infield single to GAT Realmuto. Then Nick Castellanos grounds out, and they're unable to turn the double play. It was hit a little bit too was that the play? No. That wasn't the play. That was softly hit, but it was the Austin Hayes one, I think, is the one I'm thinking about there. Anyway, Rojas pinch runs. That's where Castellanos busted it down the line and beat it out. And the Phillies, I must say, I noticed with them a good hustle for that team. They don't really, I think it's what makes them successful. They're talented and they really work hard. Just something that I noticed. But Bryson Stott gets a single off of Holmes, makes it 1st and 2nd, 1 out. Then Austin Hayes grounds into a force. You know what? Actually, I guess it was that Castellanos one where there was a chance to maybe turn the double play and they couldn't. Hayes, they get the force out at 2nd. And then, so that leads you to 1st and 3rd, 2 out. And it's a wild pitch. Kyle Schwarber's the batter, and it's a wild pitch by Clay Holmes, which ties the game. Johan Rojas, the pinch runner, scores to tie it up. It's tied up at 5. And that was a concern with a runner on third with Holmes, like that he might throw a wild pitch, and that's exactly what happened. They intentionally walk Kyle Schwarber. Then Trey Turner gets an infield single, makes it bases loaded. Again, a lot of soft contact, and then a really interesting thing happens. Bryce Harper hits the ball really hard, and DJ LeMahieu boots it at first base. Now, keep in mind, LeMahieu did a nice job with some scoops, so I don't want to totally crush his defense. He did make some nice plays before that, but luckily, feels like the game's going to be over. LeMahieu can't come up with it, but Gleyber Torres happens to be right place, right time. He fields it, and Clay Holmes does a nice job of going to first base and covering, and it goes from Gleyber to Clay, and they get Harper out to keep the game alive. So it looked like it was going to be over, but again, Gleyber, who has been bad defensively, give him credit. He saves LeMahieu, and they get the final out of the ninth inning. 10th inning, Jeff Hoffman comes on, another good reliever for the Phils, and the Yankees don't score in the top of the 10th. Gleyber does his job in a way. He flies out. Chisholm goes to third, but then DJ LeMahieu. And at this point, I'm just frustrated because he pops out to third. And keep in mind, this is before his really big game 3. So LeMahieu, I would have wanted Oswaldo Cabrera to pinch hit there, but they just don't do it. And the ironic thing is, a couple innings later, they pinch hit Stanton for LeMahieu in a situation where there was no one on base, there was 2 out. And the fact of the matter is that LeMahieu is likely, very likely, the better first baseman than Oswaldo. And they had no problem pinch hitting Stanton in a more meaningless situation. So, again, it is frustrating that I feel like Oswaldo does get the short end of the stick, where versus righties, they were starting Cabrera. But in that situation, they didn't want to pinch hit LeMahieu for Oswaldo. I digress, but LeMahieu does not come through there, and then Volpe flies out to right. A nice play by Brandon Marsh, to be fair. Now Mark Leiter comes in, making his Yankee debut, like literally just got off the plane probably not that long ago. And what he has to do is keep him at bay because runner on second, and Leiter Jr. does the job. Bone grounds out, no advance. That was big. Brandon Marsh pops out. Then they intentionally walk Real Muto to face Johan Rojas, which was the right move, but Rojas gets an infield single. And so that was a little bit worrisome, where Rojas is able to it goes off of Leiter Jr.'s glove. Like just bad luck. So bases loaded, 2 out, and Bryson Stott flies out to Trent Grisham. So Leiter Jr. was pumped up. That's a great job by him in his first appearance to be thrown into the fire like that. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Michael Tonkin. If you remember who his first appearance he was thrown into was an extra inning situation at Milwaukee earlier in the season. So we go to the 11th inning. The Yankees this time do score a run. Grisham grounds out to move Volpe over to third, and Verdugo gets a sac fly to give the Yankees a 6-5 lead. The Yankees would threaten Soto for more. Soto singles, Judge singles, makes it first and third, 2 out, but Austin Wells strikes out again. A tough outing for Austin Wells. And then bottom of the 11th, Michael Tonkin comes on, and he had just pitched the night before. And they end up getting 2 huge innings out of Tonkin. It didn't start out great. It's a wild pitch, then an RBI single for Austin Hayes to tie it right up at 6. Then Schwarber strikes out, and Hayes steals second. Then Trey Turner grounds out. Bryce Harper's intentionally walked, setting the stage for first and third, 2 out for Alec Bohm. And a great, great catch by Trent Grisham in center field. When Bohm first hit it, I'm thinking this is probably dropping in, but a great diving catch by Grisham. So some really nice defense to keep the Yankees alive. We go to the 12th. And Orion Kirkring comes on after Jeff Hoffman pitched 2 innings. Jazz Chisholm is able to get a sort of a bloop opposite field single to get the thing going. First and third, no out. And Gleyber Torres is able to get a sac fly. Although, does it not go down? No, it does go down as a sac fly. Gleyber, it's a sac fly. Wells scores. Not good base running by Jazz Chisholm, and I've noticed this. Chisholm needs to be a little bit smarter when it comes to the base running. I like his aggressiveness at times, but here he gets thrown out at second, which was pretty unnecessary, and his run was important there. Anyway, Stanton pinch hits for LeMahieu, as I talked about. He strikes out. And so the Yankees are up 7-6 going to the bottom of the 12th. And Tonkin gets the job done. Brandon Marsh flies out to Grisham, and the base runner Bohm decides not to try to advance to third. I thought he might give it a shot. He didn't. And then Tonkin strikes out Real Muto, and then Weston Wilson pinch hits for Rojas, and Tonkin strikes out Wilson. To end the game. Tonkin was fired up, deservedly so, and a really gutsy, gritty win for the Yankees. That was a pretty fun game. And the Yankees, with that win the series. And so that's 2 series wins in a row. But they get greedy and they decide, you know what, we're going to go for the sweep. And they do get it. So let's talk about game 3. So this pitching matchup is Nestor Cortes, who, was dealt with a lot of trade rumors and speculation. I thought there was a chance that he would get traded under a certain scenario. Like if the Yankees had acquired Jack Flaherty, I wouldn't have been surprised if they did deal Nestor in a separate trade. But for Cortes, he ends up getting his first win on the road since May of 2023. He improves to 5-9, 5 1/3, 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. So, it allows 1 home run. So a really nice outing for Nestor Cortes. Really, each of the starters, Heel, Warren, and Cortes, gave the team a chance to win. And of course, it helps that the offense did their thing. For the Phillies, Christopher Sanchez, not the best of outings. 5 2/3, 8 hits, 6 runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, and a big grand slam allowed to DJ LeMahieu. To be fair, 2 of those runs were inherited runs allowed. So that made the line a little bit worse. But LeMahieu's the star of this game. And so versus the lefty, they sat Ben Rice. DJ LeMahieu starts at first base. Austin Wells gets a breather, and Carlos Narvaez starts, and Giancarlo Stanton back into the lineup as the DH. So Yankees jump out to that early lead in the second inning. Stanton single, Chisholm Jr. single, Volpe strikeout in a pretty poor at-bat, Verdugo walk, and then a grand slam by LeMahieu. Just so unexpected against the pitcher and Sanchez, who had not allowed a home run at home all season. And it was reviewed. It's funny, LeMahieu's 2 home runs have barely gotten out, but I got to give him credit. He got into this one, and whether it was a 3-run double or a grand slam, credit to DJ. It's been a really tough season for him. Like his batting average is 182, and even with the grand slam, even with the 2-run double today, his OPS is 522. It's been a rough disaster for him, but that grand slam gives the Yankees a 4-0 lead. But Nestor gets into a little bit of trouble in the 4th. Leadoff walk for Schwarber, double for Austin Hayes. Then after a Harper strikeout, you get an RBI ground up by Alec Boehm, and then a 2-out RBI single by Castellanos. So kind of wanted to avoid that. Doesn't happen, and so it becomes 4-2. Then in the bottom of the 5th, he allows a home run to Weston Wilson, and this was a bad 0-2 pitch by Nestor that was crushed by Wilson, makes it 4-3. So, it's funny. This game kind of did have somewhat similar feels to game 1, where the Yankees jump out to the big lead to start. Phillies are starting to creep back, but the Yankees respond a really big response inning in the 6th. A 2-out rally as well. An infield single for Anthony Volpe, a single for Alex Verdugo. Then they bring on the righty Jose Ruiz for LeMahieu. And of course, they leave LeMahieu in, which is not surprising considering he had a grand slam earlier, considering they left him in the game before against the righty. And LeMahieu delivers an opposite field 2-run double, a 6 RBI game for DJ. Like, I can't even believe it. It was a blast from the past. It really was. Like, this was the LeMahieu that we've seen before. Just, that double especially. Forget about the grand slam. That double to right center field, like that was just a part of his game. And so that makes it 6-3 Yanks. And then you have, at that point, Nestor gets an out in the 6th. They bring on Luke Weaver. And for Luke Weaver lately, it's been a little bit touch and go with him. It's been a little bit of struggles. It's a triple for Alec Boehm and then an RBI grand out for Nick Castellanos, makes it 6-4. Then we go to the bottom of the 7th, and Luke Weaver gives up a single to Stott, who was a pinch hitter, and then Garrett Stubbs grounds out. So they bring on Tommy Kahnle with a runner on second and 1 out. Brandon Marsh walks, Kyle Schwarber strikes out, and then a really close call where Austin Hayes almost got into one. He almost hit a 3-run homer, but Alex Verdugo at the track, at the wall, makes the catch, and Kahnle gets out of it, and they keep it a 6-4 lead. Then at the bottom of the 8th, Mark Leiter Jr. comes on, and his number, I was alluding to this in the deadline recap episode, where Leiter Jr.'s numbers have been ridiculous lately. Today, unfortunately, those numbers take just a small hit, where he finally allows a run. And you know what? Part of it was Gleyber Torres' fault. Let's get into it. Grand out for Harper, double for Boehm, and then an RBI single for Castellanos off of Leiter Jr. And Castellanos, it was hit hard, but Gleyber Torres has got to make this play, and it goes by him. Too many times Gleyber Torres is making mistakes. So that makes it 6-5, cuts the lead to 1, which was worrisome for many reasons, knowing that Clay Holmes, like in a best-case scenario, Clay Holmes is coming in the 9th, probably in a one-run game, but it got a little bit dicier in the 8th. Leiter does strike out Sosa, but then Bryson Stott singles, and Garrett Stubbs is hit by a pitch, which was really what Leiter Jr. did not want to do there at all. So bases loaded 2 out for Brandon Marsh, but Leiter bears down, and he strikes Marsh out. Really nice job. So what we've seen from Leiter so far, he's been in some tough spots, and he's able to come out of it and get the big outs. And look, the fact that he came in the 8th inning, he is going to be a big, big piece in this pen and very highly relied upon as a major high leverage reliever, right? Like the fact that, and I think the order, look, unfortunately, I wish Holmes was part of that interchanging mix, but he'll be in the 9th. But beyond that, it feels as if right now between Leiter Jr., Canely, and Weaver, they're going to be sort of in that 6th, 7th inning conversation with Tim Hill kind of thrown in there as a lefty every now and then. And I think that, again, like I think they still like Cousins and Tonkin as well. So bottom of the 9th we go. Clay Holmes, it doesn't start out good for Clay Holmes, and expectations and hopes are low. Schwarber singles, and then Hayes hits another deep fly ball to the track that Verdugo catches. So Holmes is going to hit hard. And you know what? The final out, he was hit hard again, but it works out. Bryce Harper ends the game on a 4-6-3 double play, ironically to Glaber, and the Yankees get the sweep. They sweep the Philadelphia Phillies. They improve to 65-45. They win the game 6-5. And so now they head home to take on the Toronto Blue Jays, who look like a different team. Post-deadline, you look at this lineup they have, the only real big threat is Vlad Guerrero. Of course, there is still George Springer, who gave the Yankees big-time problems in Toronto the last series they faced each other. But, you know, Spencer Horwitz is like a nice young player. There are some, you know, players in that lineup that I think, you know, you can't forget about. But like this Toronto team is nowhere near the one that we have seen, whether it be earlier in the season, recent years. Like the roster's not as good. So I'm hoping the Yankees can take advantage of that. Let's preview that series real quick in the pitching probables. And again, the Yankees have not been good at Yankee Stadium. It's just something to keep in mind. But hopefully that changes with the Yankees now playing better. It'll be Kevin Gausman versus Marcus Stroman. And Gausman, who in the past was good against the Yankees, has really been bad against them this year. And it's Marcus Stroman facing his former team, the Blue Jays. And Stroman has not been very good lately. So let's see what he does here. So again, Mike, that's a matchup of two veterans who have had successes in the past. But, you know, in the case of Gausman, he's kind of turned his season around, but the Yankees have really gotten to him in this 2024 campaign. So we'll see what happens in that one. And that'll also be the home debut for Jazz Chisholm Jr., so I'm sure he'll get a nice round of applause, and that'll be fun to see. And then Leiter Jr. as well. And then De Los Santos, whenever he comes in, will be making his Yankee debut. Game 2 will be between Jose Barrios and Carlos Rodon, so another veteran-type matchup. And that's a repeat matchup, I'm pretty sure. We saw them face off where Rodon got really hit hard in Toronto. Because I remember thinking, like, oh, this is like an AL Central matchup, like Twins, Barrios, Rodon, White Sox. So that's, again, a repeat matchup. Hopefully better for Rodon this time, and Rodon has been better lately. And then Game 3, the final game of the series, will be one that I think on paper benefits the Yankees the most, where it'll be Yariel Rodriguez, a right-handed starter for the Blue Jays, I should say, against TBD, which hopefully is Garrett Cole. If it's not Garrett Cole, figure it'll be Luis Gil. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, things are definitely getting better for the Yankees. A big-time road trip. They win 5 in a row against the Red Sox and the Phillies. And so now they sit just a half game back of the Baltimore Orioles in the AL East. And hopefully when we speak next, considering the Orioles are going to be going to Cleveland to take on the Guardians, and considering the Yankees are home against a pretty worn-down Blue Jay team, hopefully the Yankees can take the lead in the division. We'll see what happens. But, this Jazz Chisholm acquisition has really turned things around, and hopefully the Yankees can keep it up. They will be feeling pretty good about themselves coming off of a sweep in Philly against the Phillies.